Freakacast news. We jumped right into tagging back up on our previous episode where I joined you. We want to talk about a couple things. First off, the show Star Wars: The Clone Wars wrapped up this past May, or so we thought. Now, part of that was because after the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney, Disney decided to pull the plug on Clone Wars, mostly because since they're gunning into production with Episode 7, which we'll talk about in a little bit, they wanted to take the focus off the prequel era and move it into the original trilogy area, back to the Galactic Civil War. Mm-hmm. One thing they are going to be doing is, since they had already episodes from season 6 in production, they're going to go ahead and finish the production on those episodes and release them in the spring of next year,
nice.
2000. So we will get to see them. And one of the things that was talked about was a Yoda story arc, which I'm very interested to see how that would play out, and to see if they would tie up any loose ends from some of the characters that really had strong story arcs during the season, or during the show, Going along with that, they've got a brand new show called Star Wars Rebels, which will debut in the fall of next year. And what they've described it as is, while you have the time period of the Galactic Civil War, the story and the episodes will primarily focus on a group of individuals that will travel around in a ship called the Ghost. I know in one of the articles it talked about it being kind of like Scooby-Doo, but I see more of like the show Firefly, where you have your band of rebels going around space in a single spaceship and their adventures happening that way.
I'm sorry, you got me on Scooby-Doo and Star Wars. That
yeah, I know.
That's great. Like, Zoink Scoob, look out, there's a sandcrawler. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I would find that funny, but I don't think it's going to play off like Scooby-Doo. I think it's going to play off more like the show Firefly, which is basically the exact same premise.
Is this going to be animated?
Yes, it's going to be animated. In fact, it's going to be made by the same crew who did Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So they've already got the technical skill to be able to pull the show off. And so now you're going to get to see stormtroopers and TIE fighters and Imperial Star Destroyers, much like you guys are familiar with in the original trilogy, now being brought to you in an animated format once a week. And they've also released an image of a character called the Inquisitor, who looks kind of like a good classic bad guy, who no one expects. So that should be really fun. Because no one expects the Inquisitor.
No, I kind of hope, I'm sure they won't do it, but I kind of hope he has a slight Spanish accent.
You never know. They're always trying out different accents for various characters, just to give the characters a different feel. For the Twi'leks, when they did their home planet, they gave him kind of a French accent.
Yeah.
With Kid, who kind of looks like he's got a squid for a head. They gave him a Jamaican accent. They're always trying out different accents just to give it a different flavor and a feel. So you never know. They could give him a Spanish accent. That'd be funny.
All right. Well, cool.
But we've got that to look forward in terms of Star Wars television. Obviously, we've got Episode 7 on the horizon. We haven't heard anything of note recently. There's lots of casting rumors going around, but that's just all they are, just rumors. It's funny because almost every day online I'll see so-and-so, said that they were auditioned for Star Wars. Like, yeah, that's kind of like saying I drink water today. Everyone does it. It's a Star Wars movie. Everyone is going to try to audition for this thing. I mean, it'd be one thing if you said, so-and-so hates Star Wars and they want to be as far away from it as possible. That would be newsworthy. Why? But we won't hear anything for a while. I don't think that's really going to be on their top priority right now. I know the going around that Harrison, Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill are going to be back. There's nowhere that says that they are, but there's nowhere that says that there aren't. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's so far away for right now. It's just, all it is just rumors.
Yeah, and quite honestly, as much as, that cast made the original trilogy, the new trilogy is going to be about, I still believe that the new trilogy is going to be about the next generation. And so, if they are there, they're going to be in a very small capacity. You're not going to see Luke Skywalker wielding a lightsaber. I just don't see it. And if he does, it'll be very similar to Ben Kenobi. One fight and he's done.
Or he's training somebody or something. That's, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be. It's going to be focused on the newer generation. So
as it should be.
What happens in the next few months? I do think in the next couple months we'll hear something. Even if it's just like, okay, these people are in it. We're not going to tell you who they are or what or anything else, but these people are in it. But like I said, we've got Clone Wars and Rebels coming up too, so we'll have that to look forward to. The other thing we have that's kind of been rumored around, and I just kind of want to get your perception on it as well, Andrew.
Okay.
There's talk of Disney wanting to do spin-off films, not just the new trilogy, but also spin-off films. The idea being that you'll have your typical Star Wars film come out every couple of years, and then a spin-off film coming out in the years in between. The two big names that they've talked about so far for a spin-off film are Han Solo and Yoda. What's your take on this?
Not the ones I would have started with.
Okay. Who would you have gone with?
Frickin' Boba Fett.
I'm the same way. It's like, and I think the reason is because with Han Solo, you kind of don't need to know anything else about him in order to appreciate, in order to get out of what you get out of in the trilogy. And I kind of feel like we've seen enough of Yoda.
I mean, granted, like when we meet Yoda, technically for the first time in episode 1, and later the thing is he's old, so there's plenty of stuff to do. Like there's a young Yoda, there's potential there, sure, because that's a whole wealth of things that could have happened. Like the forming of the Jedi Order and the Sith Lords that he dealt with, and things of that nature. So there's possibility there. I'm not that far against that one, but like for Han, it's sort of like we got all his characterizations and things in the context of the movies he was in. Like all the stuff that we really need to know was said.
Yeah.
To a degree, I mean, like, do we really need to see like that fated mission where he had to dump his cargo and got in debt to Jabba? No, because he said it already.
Yeah. Do we really need to see the card game played out where he loses the Falcon to Lando? I don't think so.
Or isn't it vice versa, where Lando loses it to him?
Yeah, or one of the two.
Do we?
They were probably two card games where one of them lost to the other one. So like, all right, I'll play you again to get it back.
Double or nothing.
Exactly.
All right, I'll throw in the Wookiee.
Yeah.
I mean...
I'm agreeing with you, Andrew. I think, and the funny thing is Joe Johnston, who created Boba Fett, who made The Rocketeer and Captain America, we know the man can make an action movie, and a good action movie, especially with guys in rocket packs and helmets. And he's already said that he wants to make a Boba Fett movie, so I'm all for that one. I don't know. I mean, I will agree with you. The idea of a Yoda spinoff from like him, a young Yoda, that's at least got potential there. But is it? I don't know. I guess that's something where I'd have to get an idea of the premise and maybe see in order to really decide. But
and the thing is, like, I'm sure there would be merit to a Han Solo adventure because, if he's a smuggler, he's got all these adventures he can go on. Like they could go on like how he met Chewie to begin with.
Yeah.
Things like that. So, I mean, I'm sure there is certainly, depending on what story you want to tell, there's a story there, but it's not really going to, we already know who Han Solo is and his character.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know a whole lot about Boba Fett as far as movies go.
Yeah.
And, like, my thing is, like, a bounty hunter movie, that's, right for, like, whatever you want. Because, like, hey, do this deal, do that deal. Is he truly a scumbag all the way through, or does he have some other characteristics? Like, do we want to root for him, or are we against him the whole time?
You could do it like the Transporter movies.
Exactly. And,
space.
You can add, like, you could add complexity to this character. Because, like, he has a deep-rooted hatred for the Jedi because they killed his father, sure. But does he have other traits? Like, does he Is he a jerk all the way through, or is he... What?
For some reason, when you say, does he have any traits, it made me think of, like, he's also a plumber.
I hate them Jedi, which is why I carry 2 plungers. Because they always back those toilets up. They never flush twice.
And you like, he's got an ad on TV for like, Boba Fett plumbing. Disintegrations when necessary.
What are those, what's that thing called that was in the trash compactor?
The Dianaga?
Is that what that thing, like, got a Dianaga? No problem. I'm your guy.
Just the idea of seeing this Boba Fett plumbing commercial.
I come to clean your toilets. I have a space plunger.
And now it's a musical. Why not? That's
Why
usually
not?
my line, though, so I'm kind of surprised.
I mean, it's just as ridiculous as many other things that have happened.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, if that's the case, pretty good chance it'll happen.
My only, I guess, for my most basic reaction for at least the Han one is maybe that's them trying it out. Trying the idea of a spin-off out with like, hey, Boba Fett, that seems like something a lot of people would want, but let's play it safe with characters that we know people would want to see more of. Like, they're the good guys. They're the established good guys. Like,
I don't even just know if it's necessarily the good guy aspect of it, but you know, if you mention the name Han Solo, most people have at least heard of the character.
yeah.
You know, Boba Fett's a little bit more obscure. Obviously, you know, people that know the films know the character quite well, at least from what we're presented with. But yeah, I think with Han Solo, that they're going more the safe route. Which, you know, on one hand, I can't blame them. On the other hand, I can, because one of the things Star Wars has always done is not gone the safe route.
Yeah.
You know, for good, for better, for worse, whether you like it or not, they've always said, you know what? Yeah, you might be expecting this, but we're going to do this and just dance. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a couple years before we hear or see anything else about it. So, you know, it may even be something else that we haven't thought of, you know, like a janitor film, you know, a reference guy that no one knows about, but he's awesome because he's obscure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's many years out, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. But what we don't have to wait for is we've got Thor 2 coming out from when this is released, basically about a week. November 8th. Got Thor 2, The Dark World, coming out on November 8th. And I'm highly excited about that. From the trailers we've seen so far, it looks like it's just like I pegged a while back. It's going to be a fantasy film. It just happens to have these Marvel characters in it. The way that the villain Malekith is portrayed seems very menacing, but also they're bringing Loki back to kind of tag up the storyline and what was going on with him and Thor after the events of the Avengers. So I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be interesting to see this play out, not just in terms of the story, but just the tone of the film. It's very much, and I know a bunch of people have seen it. I haven't seen it because I don't have cable, but the show Game of Thrones, it definitely has a Game of Thrones feel to it, mostly because the guy who's making the film worked on Game of Thrones.
All right, well then.
It's going to have that grittier, you know, kind of warrior feel to it, which I think Thor needs. I think he needs kind of a good beat-em-up action warrior movie. So I think he's going to get his due in this one.
As long as he gets to hit people with a hammer, I'm going to be a happy guy.
He does in the trailer. So
I know.
Do that more times. The other one that I'm curious on, I don't know much about about so far is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which comes out in April of next year. Because we talked about it being a political thriller, which kind of makes sense, kind of like your Tom Clancy stories. Have more of that political intrigue, but still having action in it. The costume, I have to say, I don't like. Because they're not using any, it's like, I understand where they're getting it from. It's from the comics where it's kind of more of a shield look to it. It doesn't have any red in it. Given up on the red completely, and his helmet, his ears are not covered. Like, he's got the exposed ears. And I get it, they're trying to go for, hey, he didn't have his ears covered in the comics, so he shouldn't have them covered in the thing. And it's like, no, it's stupid, because any soldier will tell you you need to cover your ears when you're going into battle. Obviously, they've decided to throw logic out the window on this one, so I'm a little worried already. And I understand that there's some logic you just have to go with in these films. But with something basic like this, it's like, in wrestling you had to cover your ears for protection. That's why you wore the headgear. The same with martial arts. In fact, it's the same reason that, Batman had his mask be his helmet in Batman Begins. You need protection, and he's just gonna here, poke me in the ears! It's like, why? It's like, all you gotta do is shoot him in the ear and he's dead. I'm just confused on this one, and maybe I'm ranting too long about this little minute thing, but...
Thing is, it bothers you. I wonder how many people it'll actually bother, other than who doesn't notice these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Like, anybody who's fired a gun will tell you, be the first to tell you, look, firearms and stuff are loud. Like, you can damage your hearing with stuff like that. So any soldier would want some ear protection. But people who aren't soldiers and people who don't fire guns and people who don't pay attention to costuming, will they really notice?
Well, I think, I don't know. I will say that the one image they released of him in the suit on the motorcycle, it honestly just looks kind of silly because his ears are sticking out like Dumbo. And that's one of the reasons I noticed it. I'm like, wow, his ears are sticking out. That looks kind of silly. Like, I'd almost rather him have the USO show out because that somehow looked less silly than this. But, we'll see. And maybe there's a plot point to it. Maybe there's a reason for it. If they have that, I'm okay with it. Going based on an image, it's hard to tell the way it's going to fit into the story. And as long as there's a method behind it, I'm okay with it. If they're going to make changes, that's fine. But make sure there's a reason for the change, not just change just for the sake of change.
Right. Well, hopefully, granted, a lot of these, costume differences, some of it is to, hey, we want to change it from movie to movie, but also it's like, hey, we need to make action figures.
Yeah, I know. But like I said, if you're going to change it, that's fine, but, have a story element to it. That way, hey, when kids are playing with your action figures, there's a reason for the changing costume,
Yep.
Like, Trevor, Riddler blew up all the Batsuits except for the one, because it was, in a special case. So he had to change, he had to have a different suit because of that, Well, what other movie was it? Iron Man changes suits like every 5 minutes, I feel.
Yeah.
He has different Iron Man suit depending upon the weather of the day, depending upon the time of day. So I do feel like that's one of the reasons why the companies like Iron Man films, because they're like, hey, you could squeeze out 10 different costumes in one movie and it makes sense somehow. So we've got 10 action figures right there we can make.
Exactly.
And you don't sacrifice story in order to do it. But speaking of Iron Man and those sorts of guys, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show has been on for a little over a month now, by the time this is released. Andrew, have you got a chance to see any of the episodes?
No, my dad watched the first episode, though, and he liked it.
Well, if you missed the episodes because of work, you can easily go online to abc.com, watch the episodes there. They usually show up the day after the episodes air, and they come on Tuesday night, so, Wednesday for the rest of the week, if you if you miss an episode because of work, you can easily go online to watch them. I highly recommend it. There's been at least one cameo from one of the film's characters. That was pretty cool. And, the show it's good. It's not dramatic like Arrow, that I'll talk about in a second. It feels like you're watching Avengers, without the main characters, but you feel like you're watching the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, but with the same spirit and style of the Avengers movie on TV. A good job with it. So.
All right, cool.
I don't think you saw any of the episodes of Arrow last year, did you?
No.
No. Best way I can describe it is Batman Begins on TV, only swapped out Batman for Green Arrow. Good pacing in the show, because you don't feel like you're missing anything, but at the same time you want more. One of the things they're doing in this season, into that far, but they haven't gotten to it. I know that they're, at least from my understanding, they're planning on having him full at the end of the series, is they debut Flash. Like, full on the Flash, and it's because, and I think it's simply because an industry change. I know when we talked about Man of Steel, we talked about how, the effects were there, but, and they definitely went a lot and everything, but there was some diversity in the reaction to the film. And I think one of the things that DC is doing is, because most of their characters require such lavish effects, and they've had a previous attempt in box office with Green Lantern, I think what they're trying to do is say, you know what, we don't have to spend all this money on marketing if we put it on TV. And granted, our budget's not going to be as big, but we can still do it justice. The testing ground to see if the characters work.
I missed some of that, Matt. Yeah.
What was the last part you heard?
Well, basically they were putting it on TV as a testing ground to see how it will work.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're putting it on TV as a testing ground to see if the characters work and to see if people respond to the characters.
Yeah. And Flash at least is a good, at least a starting point, because with him you can do super speed probably a lot cheaper than some of the other superpowers they could attempt.
Well, that all depends on how far they go with it, because the thing with Flash is the super speed is really like the tip of the iceberg. Because he's the only superhero that can time travel, and it's a little bit of time travel and also interdimension travel. That's how you get to Gorilla City. That's how you get to, get to different things. And if they do it well, on the show, I think that'll really generate interest in showcasing that this guy's not just running fast.
But who knows? I mean, they might try to limit some of that, because some of that I didn't know he could go interdimensional because he's that fast. That's a little silly, but so they might try to make it less silly. Who knows?
Well, it just depends on how they do it. I mean, Arrow's, like I said, it's already like Batman Begins in a sense of realism. So if they are going to do it, I think they'll somehow make it feel realistic. Talk of it, there's talk. It's not official till it happens, obviously, but there's talk of it, of Flash being a spin-off show of Arrow, and them using his presence in the Arrow TV show as basically the debut of a character, but we're going to officially have him in the Flash TV show. I don't know if that's still their way of going it or not, but if they do, I think I'm all for it.
We'll see. I mean, the Flash worked as a TV show briefly before. Well, kinda. Yeah. So we'll see.
Well, it existed as a TV show.
Yeah.
Whether or not it worked.
It's a whole different story.
Yeah. And honestly, I think part of that is because it seems kind of odd to say this, but I do kind of agree with Mark Hamill. I think part of the reason the show suffered initially was because they didn't have your villains. You had your run-of-the-mill muggers and crooks and stuff like that, instead of just, full-on go out with your supervillains. Which they do kind of do in Arrow, so, yeah. But that's kind of all the news type stuff we have to talk about today, unless you
I do, actually. And, and these are sort of news, kinda, but really they just don't fit with what we'll be talking about today. And I know these you don't personally don't have any connection to because they're both gaming related.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with, one's going to be sort of a mini review, very, very short, and the other is just sort of a, you know what Kickstarter is, correct?
Yes.
All right, well, last month I, for the first time, participated in Kickstarter.
Okay.
Because, all right, Matt, pop quiz. What is my favorite game series of all time?
Mega Man.
Correct. And Capcom is a blundering idiot when it comes to Mega Man right now. I'm just going to put it blunt. Capcom has been very stupid as of late with their IPs and franchises. And so the creator of Mega Man, who went off to do his own company and own gaming thing, was like, Mega Man's no longer mine. I created him, but I also kind of revolutionized that genre. And I'm noticing a lot of people have really, really, really wanted to go back to that genre, that style of gaming. So you know what? Screw it. I'm going to make my own. So, at this year's PAX, or one of those gaming conventions, he announced that he was going to go to Kickstarter and try to fund a game called Mighty Number 9.
Okay.
And basically he came out and said, this is going to be I'm head of it, my company's head of it, and I'm getting he got a lot of people who were involved in the gamings of that, the really great games of that era, so a lot of people he worked with are on board, like the person who composed the music for the Mega Man games is on board, and that's a really big coup, because that dude makes some great music. And he's like, I'm getting a lot of these people together, but I also want this to be very much a fan relationship too. Like, I want their input as well. So we're putting this on Kickstarter, so right away, fan involvement. We're putting up contests for people to design enemies and fan art. We're going to have forums up because we want to talk to you guys all the time. We want this, and so they put up on Kickstarter, and they had many tiers of things, and they wanted their initial goal to get the game funded. That was their initial goal, and then you have stretch goals, which is like, all right, well, if we have this much money, let's try to go here, so we can get to here, so we can get to here. Like, for example. Like, it was originally just going to be on the PC and Mac, like a computer game. Like, let's try to get it to consoles. Let's try to have enough money for extra levels. Let's try to have extra money for all these extra things. And guess what happened?
It went straight through the roof.
It did. It obliterated every single stretch goal they had.
I have no doubt.
In fact, it is I believe one of the I think it's like the third or fourth most supported things on Kickstarter, at least in the game category, because it earned over $4 million.
Holy!
Well over $4 million of fan funding to get this game made.
Wow!
So it's coming out for
like 5 times the amount they were looking for.
It went through the roof. I mean, basically every stretch goal they wanted to like, hey, let's have like an additional character, like, because a lot of people like pushing for there's a co-op mode that you can do online, and a lot of people wanted that, and they got it. And so like, all right, let's try to get to the next generation, like the stuff that isn't out yet, like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Let's do those too, and the 3DS and the Wii U. Let's go there. They got it. Let's try to get money for an extra stage, just like an intro stage and some other fun stuff. They got it. Basically everything they wanted, they did.
Wow.
So, and
First thing it is probably like, oh no, crap, now we have to do it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, as soon as they got the initial funding, like as soon as they like saw that they were gonna go more than beyond, I'm sure they're like, awesome, we're gonna make the best game ever, at least the best game that we can. And the thing is, I'm looking forward to it. I put in my money the very first time I ever applied or participated in a Kickstarter, so I'll be getting a copy of the game. Hooray!
Nice.
And my name will be in the credits, but it'll be like a giant chunk, because like 4 million there's over $4 million, a worldwide donation. It's going to be that small and probably gone in a second. But yeah, so it's officially in production now, and it's slated.
To make a video game.
So it is slated to come out sometime, hopefully and depending on how their schedule goes, hopefully sometime in April of 2015. So that's why this one's going to have like a year or so to be made, and they're going to take their time.
Do you know the basic premise of the game?
Basically, the basic premise is it's very, very similar to Mega Man in the fact that you're playing as a robot. You live in a futuristic age where there's robots all over the place, and a strange computer virus has made a lot of them go berserk. And you, as Mighty Number 9, have to take down your 8 brothers and basically everyone who came before you, like all 8 of your siblings, quote unquote, because they are going to be the bosses. You got to take them down because they're the most powerful, and then restore peace and order to the land.
Okay.
Very Mega Man-esque, and obviously a lot of people are like, yeah, we want that. We've been wanting that for a long time, actually.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I've noticed a big resurgence in the whole kind of 8 or 16-bit, the basic gaming styles and that sort of thing. I saw somebody did a 16-bit version of the Dark Knight, where it looks like it's kind of like Zelda style, where it's top down, and then they go through the high points of the story.
Oh yeah, you showed me that.
Also, like an 8-bit or 16-bit version of Batman Arkham, and I'm like, make this for the iPod. I would so play this.
I mean, that's basically like my generation growing up and going back and making something like, we like that era. Like, yeah, it wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but like, there's something pleasant about that.
There's almost a charm to it because it's not perfect.
Right. And speaking of which, that's an excellent segue. Another thing that has recently come out. We briefly mentioned this. Off mic we mentioned this to each other. DuckTales Remastered came out.
Yeah,
and to mixed reviews, because some people are like, oh, it's the old game is better. I'm just like, guys, be happy. We got a new DuckTales game,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the original one is better because it was original. It did its own thing, but this one is its own beast, and I like it honestly. I mean, because I don't know, people nitpick so much and can't be happy with the fact that they remade and updated a great freaking game, and it's still a great freaking game, and it's not like the original goes away. You can still play it.
Yeah, you still have that.
But it follows the exact same storyline as... Actually, I kind of add more to the story of the original NES game. And they got all the living voice actors to reprise their roles.
Nice.
Some obviously couldn't because a few of them have died.
Yeah.
But, and all the graphics look great. The music is freaking awesome. So, I personally was very happy with it. As I said, is it... perfect? No, because some people are like, oh, the cutscenes because they added cutscenes for the dialogue. Like, oh, it takes away from the game. It slows it down. You can skip them. It's annoying, sure, but you can skip them, and it's not that bad. Look at all the time and effort that went into it, guys.
Yeah.
It still did well, and I'm hoping.
It's like you're complaining about having to watch DuckTales.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I had fun with it. I highly recommend it for those of you who can get it. And like I said, I mean, it's fun, and it definitely put a smile on my face because it did remind me quite a bit of the original, which I still have in play on occasion. So it was good. It was great to have it, and the music is freaking great.
Oh yeah. They don't just play the DuckTales theme the whole time, do they?
No, although it is nice, like a nice touch on both ends of it, because in the beginning of the game, the very, very beginning of the intro song is the original 8-bit version, which is actually pretty good, and then it goes up to the remix version, and then when you beat the game, they just flat out play the DuckTales theme song, which is also nice.
Yes.
And that's kind of it for me on the news front. So I'll give updates on Mighty Number 9 as they come. So they were going to be in production on that. And Matt will obviously be giving us updates on Star Wars and various other things.
Right.
So until then, that's...
Well, we also got the Batman, Superman, whatever they're going to call it, movie in 2015, and Avengers 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy, and I I know that they're planning an Ant-Man movie in November of 2015. So
that's an obscure one, but all right.
Yeah, well, they're just like, hey, let's get everybody else out, and like, because there's only 7 of them to remember.
It's like, look, it's Ant-Man's Marvel, right, or is he DC?
Yeah, that's Marvel.
Hey, Marvel, give me 5 minutes, and I could probably get you a more interesting hero to work with than Ant-Man.
Such as?
Like I said, give me 5 minutes. Let me look at some characters.
Because a lot of people want the character because he's Avengers and this sort of thing, and I'm like, yeah, we've got Adam in DC, and there's a reason why he doesn't have a film.
Well, because, I mean, I know we're going off topic of news and trying to get to the show, but, like, does anybody really care about shrinking movies anymore?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, the last one that did anything was...
And then regrow just doesn't... But maybe it's the character, I don't know, but I just feel like at some point it's just like, just stop with trying to get all these other characters. That's part of the reason why... if I'm reading a comic book and you're throwing in all these obscure characters, it's like, I have enough trouble focusing already. Can we just keep it to a small group of characters? That's actually one of my fears with the Avengers movies. One day they're just going to have like 10, 15 different superheroes and we're just like, what? I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I mean, you don't want to overcrowd the Avengers because then you have no time to have any characters on that to actually do anything of note. Like, you'll have the main guys and then everyone else will, like, regulated to go. I have nothing to do.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel with X-Men sometimes. Like, I get it, there's a lot of mutants. I don't care about most of them because I can only handle about 4 or 5 at a time.
I don't know. If they want to go for an...
Or Bishop. I've heard of these names. I have no idea who they are, nor do I really care because, well, I mean, there's the after Wolverine. Who really cares about the others? He's got awesome claws that are indestructible. Kind of a hero. Like, he's the loner.
I don't know. How about Darkhawk? That's an obscure Marvel character.
Darkhawk?
Yeah. I have a couple comics with him. That's the reason why I remember who he is. I think that's his name, Darkhawk. It's Hawk something or other. It's not Hawkman. I think it's Darkhawk. He's got a cool helmet and outfit. What?
It's a Boba Fett-like helmet and wings. Boba Fett, in terms of it's got like the slit and like the T.
Yeah, that's him. That's a fairly obscure character. Make a movie on him. If they're going to go Ant-Man, make Darkhawk.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been droning on enough about random stuff now, so we'll be right back with the actual content of the show after this short break. Who you gonna call?
The Freakacast!
Da-da-da.
If there's something strange in your neighborhood, it's probably our fault.
Darn kids, causing trouble in the neighborhood.
Yep.
Making kids move to Bel Air. Oh wait, wrong story.
Yeah, wrong story.
Hello everybody, we are the Freakacast. I am Andrew.
And I'm Matthew.
And you can find us on the web at afelson1.wordpress.com. Though I really gotta say that because we have repeat buttons.
.wordpress.com.
What he said, I cut him off, sorry. We are also on iTunes and Stitcher. The Freakacast will get you there. Also, check for Andrew's brain because I'm silly and didn't know anything about RSS feeds at the time. Still don't really. It's all a miracle that it's still working.
Yeah, pretty much.
We are, check out songstourpants2.com because he provided the theme song. Way to go.
Songstourpants2.com.
And recently, I have finally figured out how to put up our podcast on YouTube. So, there's a yet another place you can find us, and, you know, I'll try to keep that updated. I'm currently getting as much as our old episodes up as possible. So if there's something you missed or just want to hear again, you have another place to do it.
Yep, and we know that the channel works so that we can put longer videos so that various projects that we hopefully will get around to doing at some point can put up there. So
Exactly. So many of our creative outlets that we'll try to do will finally have homes for. And basically, you know, most of the things that we do collaboratively will probably end up there as well. So, good stuff. Finally getting some activity on a channel that had almost a year of inactivity.
yeah,
So, really, that's kind of a big kick for us because it's like, you know, we had a decent amount of views for our music video and weren't able to capitalize. Unfortunate. But hey, that's how it is sometimes.
yeah.
And really, I just want to get right to the topic, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, really. Certainly up there in my top. It's always tough to make an actual list, but Ghostbusters. And to an extent, that franchise.
Yep. Ghostbusters!
I'm sure most people know the story, but we'll touch on it briefly. But really, honestly and truly, I'm more curious to know, Matt, when were you introduced to this series? Was it the... What?
Well, no, it's funny because I don't know how you're gonna react to this, but I swear I'm not trying to put Batman in every episode. I really am not.
All right. How does Batman and Ghostbusters link up?
All right. How do they link up? Okay, here's the thing. Ghostbusters 2 came out in '89, as did the first Batman movie. And as I stated before, because Batman was rated PG-13, which oddly enough from my recollection, so was Ghostbusters, although it might have been PG. As a result of Batman being rated PG-13 and my mom not feeling that I was age appropriate enough to go see it, we went to Ghostbusters 2. I remember that summer because not only did we see the movie, but Dairy Queen had Slimer Sundays. It was like ice cream with like a green. It was really like a green, kind of like your cherry sauce, but it was green.
Okay.
Nothing fancy, but you know, it was a good product to have to go, to coincide with the film. I distinctly remember that. You and I had talked about it before. The scene where the tongue comes out of the bathroom scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Yep. Yes, it did.
And I think after that, I think that's the only thing I remember from the film, actually, was the tongue. It wasn't until, I guess, I don't know if you have it in front of you or not, but I can't think of it now. The TV show, the cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That was on TV, and I started watching that. However, as I've told you, although the Ghostbusters, the Filmation's Ghostbusters, were just two guys and a monkey, or a gorilla, I mean. And not much of the show, I do remember I had to have seen it because I have action figure, or I had action figures to it. Couldn't figure out why there was not a gorilla in the Ghostbusters movie that I saw. I was very disappointed there wasn't a gorilla in the movie.
Yeah, I have very, very, very vague memories of seeing the cartoon of that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure I've seen an episode, but I cannot remember it very well.
Honestly, I want to say, and it got me thinking about it, I want to say I had like a play set to it. Hold on, give me a second here.
All right, while he's searching, I had kind of a similar. I'm going to fill a little bit of time in saying I had a similar deal with but that I distinctly remember seeing the second movie first. I don't remember if it was in theaters or not. I know we definitely had it on a something we taped off the TV. We didn't own the original VHS release of it. But I remember watching Ghostbusters 2 quite a bit, and like you, had the same moment of getting really scared at the thing coming out of the bathtub. So much so that I refused to take a bath for the longest time after that. I insisted on taking showers. I don't know how that made a difference in my mind, but it did.
Well, when you're a kid, those things are not equated. So.
And what's strange is like there is we'll get when we talk about the second movie at length. There is a legitimate like scary moment in that movie. That didn't bother me as much as the thing coming out of the tub. And I think what the reason being is I wrote about this when I was doing my like top movies that I watched growing up list many years ago. I think because we were kids and that we were taking baths at the time, that was something we could directly relate to. It was like, oh, I'm a kid, I take a bath. Like all this stuff is fantasy. Like I don't live in New York. But that I certainly can relate to, and if that can come out of the tub and get me, I don't want to be near the tub.
Definitely.
So, and I definitely watched the cartoon quite a bit, and it's just it's good stuff. What were you looking for? Did you find what you were looking for?
I did. I gotta show you a picture.
Okay.
I had the house. I distinctively remember that I had the house.
Huh.
So
I don't think I've...
I had at least two of the figures in the house. I don't know if I had the car or not, but I do remember having the playhouse and then the couple figures.
And I don't remember that at all. I mean, I never had it, but I certainly don't remember ever seeing one.
Yeah.
Strange indeed. All right, so I guess we should probably start at the beginning, because that's the...
Oh, then there's a Lego version of it somebody knows.
Well, actually, Lego actually comes into play now, if you've been looking at Lego Cusco recently.
Oh, yes, because didn't they just reach their 10,000 votes or supporters on Ghostbusters?
Yeah, I think two of them, actually. Two different Ghostbuster sets reached the votes, I believe. What's that?
What were the two sets?
Well, one had the firehouse.
Okay.
And I think the other one mostly focused on the figures in the Ecto-1, I believe.
Okay, but, I don't know, in my opinion, if you're going to have a firehouse, it's got to come with the Ecto-1.
Well, I guess it depends, because...
That's like making the Batcave set and not having a Bat vehicle to go with it.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know, there's the scale of it, at least in my eyes, looks pretty big. So maybe they would do a separate car. But I mean, it hasn't even gotten to the review stage yet, so we'll see.
Well, I know that Lego does. Usually, they if they do make a modification, slight modifications to adjust for. Well, I don't know.
Tough to say, but I don't know why I'm hitting the volume for my computer when I was trying to do the high touch. Sorry, we're all over the place here. We're trying to focus on the movie, which was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd.
Both of whom were in the movie.
One of whom, his father was actually a legitimate paranormal investigator.
Yeah, it's interesting. Aykroyd has an interesting life, interesting family. Like, did you know that the scene, other than the joke they threw at the end, the scene where Bill Murray is going through his line of questioning to the librarian that got scared at the beginning of the first movie, that's actually a legit way to look for ways of getting rid of people just saying things because they're crazy?
No, I can believe that.
Like, and some of their methods in the movie are actually, like, legit ghost hunting methods. And, psychology methods.
Imagine that there's actually some science in a science fiction.
Yeah. And honestly, like, I think so many people know these movies. I don't know if it's truly necessary to go over them in super detail.
Well, I don't think we need necessarily super detail, but at least the basic detail.
I mean, the basic plot of Ghostbusters came out in 1984. Directed by Ivan Reitman. Is that how he pronounced his last name?
Yeah,
Reitman. Okay. It stars Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Sigourney Weaver, Rick Moranis, and Ernie Hudson. What?
The scientist in our Superman short, his name was Dr. Ernie Hudson.
And it's mostly stars Bill Murray, Aykroyd, and Ramis. They're basically the core three. And it starts off with them. They're working at a university as parapsychologists, studying the paranormal and, strange and pseudosciences. Like at the beginning of it, we have Peter Venkman trying to find if negative reinforcement will trigger telepathic ability. Remember that's the scene where the guy's getting shot?
More detail than I thought you would.
What?
That you're already going in more detail than I thought you would.
Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to say, like, that's where it starts. I'm sorry. These are, like I said, these are my favorite movies. And I watch them at least once a year every year.
Oh, yeah. No, I get it. I understand. When you said you weren't going to go into super detail, it's like, wow, he's apparently...
Well, I'm trying to set up some sort of tone. To at least get us there,
They get kicked out of their parts, of their jobs, because they're not doing anything productive to the university.
Yeah, especially Murray, who is basically like trying to get laid.
Yeah, that's basically its entire premise, the entire movie, and even the semi-sen in the second movie. He's just out to get women. And he goes along with Ray and Egon because he's like, hey, these guys have an idea that might attract some women. I can use this.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is I don't think he even believes any of this stuff at first. But it's like when they see their first ghost at the library, is when he's like, okay, all the stuff they've been rambling about is real.
Yeah.
How can we capitalize on this? And so he comes up with the idea of going into business for themselves as paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
So they buy the firehouse, which, as Egon was saying, should probably be condemned because it doesn't meet any of their needs, but they buy it anyway because Ray loves it.
Yeah.
Does this pole still work? Shh, this place is great. We gotta stay here. When can we move in?
Hey, if I can afford it, I'd buy myself an abandoned firehouse.
Well, after this movie came out, wouldn't we all? Because we all have that, screw stairs. Let's go down a pole.
That's how I go to work every morning.
And they...
The pole puts my clothes on for me like the Batman show. That way I don't waste time in the morning getting dressed.
And while they're getting their stuff set up, like where they're building their equipment, they've bought the car, the Ecto-1, and they're building their containment center.
Montage, because great films have a montage. It's a thing.
Well, basically, before they get their stuff, like before the actual montage, we see them starting to build stuff up, but we also get introduced to Sigourney Weaver's character, Dana Barrett, who encounters something in her refrigerator after her eggs jump out and start cooking on the counter. Which, for a film that was made in '84, and the effects of this movie is actually pretty good, darn good. Like, they hold up, I feel.
Yeah.
Because, seeing the eggs, jump out of their shells and cook on the counter and stuff like that, that's a neat effect.
Yeah.
And that looks practical to me. That looks like a practical effect to me.
It had to have been.
And the actual ghosts themselves look good.
The thing for that film is make a lot of practical effects because, oddly enough, the effects that they did, the special effects, you hold on, because there's two types of effects that you have in
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the difference is special effects are your things like explosions. In this case, the eggs cooking on the counter. The effects that people see, but they're done prior to your post-production, and then your visual effects are done afterwards.
Right.
All of the effects hold up really well in these.
Right, because like the ghosts and the proton beams from the proton packs, I believe that was all like animated on the cells themselves, so they're not.
Yeah.
So that's why they have a really good look to them. Like they don't look dated; they look really good.
Right.
Even today.
The effects and capturing the look and feel of what they needed without making it look cheesy. I think they really. And the nice thing is when you look at the film, they kind of use the effects sparingly. Maybe that was partially knowing the fact that they could do a lot, but the story didn't really necessitate a lot of use of it, so it kind of worked, for both angles.
Yeah, and I mean, really, like the core of these movies is supposed to be about these guys, and it's supposed to be something of a comedy because like it's supposed to be kind of ridiculous that this even exists, but they're doing it, and some of their gear looks very, very cobbled together, but it's working beautifully, or somewhat great.
And they're not blowing each other up.
Right. Because, we each have unlicensed nuclear devices on our back. I love that moment where Ray turns this thing on and they're trying to scoot away from him in the elevator.
Yeah.
There's a lot of subtle stuff in that movie that I didn't get as a kid, and I do now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of great subtlety in it.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, like, this movie got better with age for me, because, like, when I saw these movies as a kid, there was so much stuff I didn't get. I got the basics of it, but all the like the little things I didn't really pick up on, and now I do, and so now it's like an infinitely better movie than it was. And certain things that I, like some of the parts that are, like, to me, it's tough for me to call this a straight-up comedy, because there's a lot of it I don't think it's, like, laugh at, like, it's not a slapstick comedy. Like, there's definitely funny moments in it.
Yeah.
But I always like I don't know. I guess maybe because I've watched it so many times, I don't see all of the things that are like, it's the funniest thing ever. It's just, that part I guess has been lost on me now. I mean, there's still some great parts that I understand are funny. I don't know. To me, it's just like, what's more of a action, supernatural drama type film that I just enjoy.
Well, I'm going to bring it up just because it makes sense. I'm kind of the same way with Batman Forever, where a lot of the stuff that jumped out at people before is lost on me because, we see a movie so many times, you pick up on certain things that other people wouldn't pick up on watching it for only one or two times. And so you're able to understand it in a different way and appreciate certain things that maybe other people didn't pick up on. So yeah, I mean, if you're watching it as often as you do, you're gonna have that relationship with the film, and you're gonna know it better than other people do. And yeah, there's parts that are funny, but you may be like, okay, yeah, that was funny the first time, and now I just accept it,
Yeah. I mean, even if you watch the same Three Stooges thing over and over, you'll acknowledge that, that part's funny, but I've seen it, so it's not really that funny. I was expecting it.
Yeah, and then you start noticing certain things that you didn't notice before.
That's when you can, look at the nuances of, like, the small things that you're like, oh, yeah, that's there, that's cool.
And then you start noticing things that are funny that you didn't realize were funny before.
Yeah, exactly. But, so, after they initially investigate Dana's apartment, don't really find anything, but, hey, they get their first customer, but they're thinking, we're out of money, maybe this wasn't a good idea. They get their actual first call on scene to go to the hotel to capture what's that?
They got a good climber.
Yeah. Whom, didn't start off as anything special, but then just became a big iconic thing for the franchise.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is, like I said, the first Ghostbusters movie I saw was the second one. And then I saw the cartoon, and then I saw this movie. I don't really recall the first time I saw this movie, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But funny for me is I remember thinking, because there was this Slammer Sunday out, and the show was like, I remember going, seeing him and thinking, wait, I thought he was, like, on their side.
Yeah, that's. I think I have a very similar like confusion of like, wait, what? Why is Slimer bad? I mean, I've got my high C ecto cooler. What's going on?
Yeah, oh man, Ecto Cooler was awesome. Granted, it was nothing but the same Kool-Aid we had before, and then just put a funny name on it,
But it was green, darn it.
but it was green, and it was Ecto Cooler.
But yeah, they capture Slimer, and then we get to the montage of them catching ghosts and their rise in fame and popularity, and then we start moving on with the subplot of the EPA wants to shut them down because they don't understand what's going on.
You don't understand me.
And we start seeing, and we get to the point, and I'm skipping over quite a bit because Rick Moranis is in this, and I haven't really spoken about him, but he plays the typical stereotyped Rick Moranis role. At least in this one.
Well, I'm wondering if this had to have been one of the first roles that he did that he really got noticed for.
Well, he was in Spaceballs.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying this was one of the first roles. Now, between this and Spaceballs, I think he definitely garnered some attention for a while. But it wasn't until after those movies that he really got a lot of attention.
I don't know. I don't have any timeline here listed because I know he was in a bunch of stuff, but essentially playing the nerd in most of them, like because he got typecast.
Right.
But anyway, so he's in it, and he and Dana Barrett are the gatekeeper and the keymaster, respectively. And here's where I feel like is the legitimate scary part of this movie, where it's the scene where Dana's in her apartment, she's on the phone talking to her mom, and you see the demon dog or whatever it's called on the other side of the door, pressing its head against it, and then like the hands jump out of the chair she's in and grab her, and she gets forced in next to the thing. That's a legitimately scary moment, I feel.
Yeah.
As compared to the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And during the course of this, you'll also realize that there's like in a video game, there's an end boss whose name is Gozer.
Yep.
Gozer the Gozerian.
Incredibly creative name. Gozer the Gozerian. That's like saying my name, I am Matthew the Matharian.
Considering you teach math, I believe it.
Never mind. Maybe that doesn't work. Or Andrew the Andrarian.
You got to make a shirt now. I am Matthew the Matharian. I teach math. Tremble in terror.
Because of Gozerian.
Yeah, and because the character Walter Peck didn't believe them and has their containment unit shut down and it explodes, Dana and Lewis, who is Rick Moranis' character, get together and summon Gozer, who can basically is the Traveler and can basically take any form it wishes. It initially starts off as a woman, and then becomes a very, very iconic thing.
Yep.
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Just popped in there.
What? What just popped in there? I tried to think. Look! I could probably... That's the scene I remember most because they also parodied that in Muppet Babies.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they took that segment from it and then they... what was it? It was the Piggy Dough Girl.
Oh, okay.
Which was pretty neat. Anyway, which is pretty neat. And so they have an epic battle with the Stay Puft, and I always thought, like, one, it's really cool and funny and creative, because, like, I guess that's definitely a big funny thing of, like, of all the horrible creatures that could have come from the mind of man. Because initially he's like some, what president does he say? Oh, he says J. Edgar Hoover. Bill Murray does. He's like, if we think of J. Edgar Hoover will come out and destroy us. So clear your heads. Which would have been funny if like a giant J. Edgar Hoover was like, "Hello, everybody." I don't know how he sounds, but I'm knocking over your building.
And cross-dressing at the same time.
Tremble in terror.
You know, I remember the first time I saw that scene, thinking, eat him! Eat him! If everyone in the city eats him, he'll be gone!
Yeah, that's...
No one bothers to eat the marshmallow. I don't know why. Free food, people.
Well, I'm sure eventually that would be part of the... Like, if the Ghostbuster didn't kill him, I'm sure that would be on the list of plans. Like, all right, plan...
I feel like I need to film an additional couple shots where it's just me and my brother running into a grocery store, coming out with some graham crackers and chocolate, and then going over there and making s'mores.
I mean, he's already on fire. Why not?
I know, right?
I mean, that's really the thing. Like, and they actually kind of touch upon it, I think, in the video game that we'll talk about later, or at least in some of the text of it, where it's like they thought to themselves, like, of all the things we could have come up with for Gozer, it's pretty good that we made him a marshmallow, because that's a fairly, it's 100 feet and could cause a lot of damage, but in all things considered, it's a marshmallow. Marshmallows are flammable. If you get them in water, they'll be destroyed. They're edible. A lot of things could go wrong. So really, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man could have done quite a bit of damage in New York City, but, there are ants everywhere. He would have been devoured.
Yep.
But, I mean, it's definitely the ludicrous thing of, like, okay, it's a giant marshmallow man attacking the city. If Godzilla was edible, here he would... and not breathing fire.
I'm just seeing this image of, people with knives and forks attacking Godzilla.
It's like, you've created a giant marshmallow man. You've single-handedly solved world hunger, but given everybody diabetes.
Slice, who wants Ujiro sushi?
But yeah, I mean, it's, I know we're not doing this super justice because we're always skimming over everything, but it's still a great freaking movie. I love this movie. As I said, it's gotten better with age. And of course, when you have a mega success like the first movie, you have to make a sequel.
Yep.
And you also have to make a cartoon, apparently, because that was the thing. And I do fondly remember the cartoon. Do you have the, we're breaking the fourth wall now, people. Do you have, well, not really. Do you have the intro for the cartoon up?
Which one?
The real Ghostbusters.
The one that, or the other one that we talked about?
The real Ghostbusters.
Real Ghostbusters. Ran from 1986 to 1991.
Good run.
Basic premise is the continuing adventures of the staff of the Ghost Removal Service.
Easy peasy.
Interesting thing, and I know you and I have talked about this before, but the guy who does the voice of Peter Venkman in the show also did the voice of Garfield in the cartoon, and then Bill Murray did the voice of Garfield in the movie.
Yep. Interesting bit of trivia. Here's another bit of interesting...
Lorenzo Music. Wow! Dude! This is awesome. Okay, so I'm reading down the list. Frank Welker did the voice of Ray Stantz.
He also did Slimer.
And currently on drama. He's on Mad TV. He's also in. Okay, I'm trying to find stuff that you and I know. Because Frank Welker's voice acted for a long time.
Yeah, I know. He's up there.
Billy. Impossible. I'm familiar with Jimmy Neutron.
I know Jimmy Neutron, kind of, sort of.
I've got a handful of kids I teach in drama that I can flat out do a remake of Jimmy Neutron and be spot on. It's ridiculous.
Well, what else is interesting?
Why go split?
Okay.
He did some, he was on Iron Diesel, Doug's first movie that we talked about, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But, you're going to like this. The guy who does voice of Egon in the TV show, Maurice LaMarche, whose most famous role is the Brain.
Nice. Very nice.
Oddly enough, because I guess it would have made too much sense for them to get Ernie Hudson to do the voice of Egon. You know who they got to do the voice, or Winston? You know who they got to do the voice of Winston?
Arsenio Hall.
Arsenio Hall.
And you know what else is strange?
What's that?
Ernie Hudson did try out for the role of Winston in the animated series.
He couldn't even get his own role back?
Yeah, for reasons unknown, they said, you're him, but we're going to go Arsenio, because, woof, woof, woof. I guess.
Well, it does kind of depend, because I know one of the podcasts I listened to, Talking Tunes with Rob Paulson. Rob Paulson's the guy who did the voice of Wacko and Pinky, and he was the original Raphael. He's currently doing the voice of Donatello in the new shit. He's done voiceovers. He's done voice work for like 20-something years.
Mm-hmm.
He's talked about on many episodes on how while a voice actor can be very good, they make a decision. They might get a different group of people on there and say, you know what, this voice doesn't really jive the way we want the voices to jive with the people we've got. So while Ernie may have been great in the role, they may have thought, with the sound we have right now, we need something different. So that way, nothing that had hard feelings towards it, because I'd hate for the man to not get his role just because they're like, well, we don't like you because you remember the role and you can't have it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons. And what's interesting about the cartoon, just stuff that I know offhand, is that the fact that they had some design creativity things, like they made Egon blonde for some reason.
Yeah, which was really strange, because I want to say that I was at least cognizant of the TV show before I saw the movie, so I couldn't figure out why Egon didn't have blonde hair.
Yep. But also, certain things they did in the cartoon actually ended up affecting the sequel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For example, like the look of Janine. If you look at Ghostbusters 1, she is radically different looking Ghostbusters 2. However, if you watch the cartoon, you're like, she looks the same. That Janine in the cartoon looks just like the Janine in Ghostbusters 2.
Makes sense.
Also, in the first movie, they realized, because of the mega success of the cartoon, okay, kids are probably going to come see this. So let's take some things out that we not necessarily want them to be, make it a little bit more kid-friendly in terms of, if you look at the first movie, a lot of people are smoking. They don't smoke in the second one. Every now and then you'll see Ray with either a pipe or a cigar, but very briefly, nobody else smokes.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, and you're talking about how let's make this kid-friendly. Okay, a giant tongue comes out of the bathtub and attacks you.
Well, it's kid-friendly in the sense that it's still going to be supposed to be catering to the core audience, but they're also all right, that's why they're I'm saying, they know the kids are coming because of the success of the cartoon, which is why they made Slimer the driver of the bus in the second one, and they're and Slimer, they acknowledge that his name is Slimer. He wasn't a bad ghost, he was just around. So that was sort of their subtle, their little nod of it.
Yeah.
And so that was how that affects it. But also, it helped boost the popularity of the overall franchise, because it was it was around the time when Ninja Turtles was out at that point, and it was before Power Rangers, but it was starting to gearing up for that. So at the time, that was that thing of emulation that kids are doing. They see Ninja Turtles, and they're doing karate moves on each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't always a big issue, but it happened. So some people really didn't like the Ninja Turtles because of that. However, there was never a problem with Ghostbusters, because the games the kids would play was completely different. Because it was hey, let's, ghosts are scary. Let's band together and fight ghosts. Let's play together. And hey, you have some different looking character types here. You got a tall, skinny guy. You got a kind of a plump guy. There's an average-looking dude, and hey, there's a black guy. But they're all together. They don't even acknowledge the fact that they look different. They're all just friends. So it doesn't matter what we look like. We can fight ghosts together. So a lot of people applauded the show for actually having a positive effect on the way their kids played.
Yeah.
And of course, merchandise. I don't know about you, but I had the firehouse.
Funny you mentioned that because, well, when we joke about it, that's actually one of the things we're doing for our drama department, to raise funds. So you need it sometimes, unfortunately, if you're gonna make money to keep. I mean, and that's the thing too, from the business standpoint. The TV show brought in the popularity of the kids went out and bought in the merchandise. It generated and helped to perpetuate the interest in the brand and the franchise. And so, they were like, okay, people want more of this, so they made another film. And obviously, whether you like it more or less or whatnot, that's besides the point. It's like they made it, and I do believe that anytime a sequel is made, at least I like to believe that people do try to say, okay, what can we do different? What can we, can we take the characters into a new story, or at least make it try to make it as interesting as the last one, but with differences, and make it as good, give people the same type of entertainment value they had the last time. That's obviously a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's very rarely do you capture lightning in a bottle twice.
Yeah, I think that would be most people's criticism of the second movie. I personally still like the second movie. Like we both said, we saw it first, so there's always that thing of I can never ever really truly hate on this movie. But I'll certainly acknowledge it's not as good as the first.
Yeah, there's definitely things that are different that, I'm just sitting here thinking, what would be some of your criticisms? Well, what would be some of your criticisms of the first one, if you have any?
Honestly, the thing is, I know why they didn't do it, because it's not really supposed to be, they're trying to focus on the characters. I would have liked to have seen a bit more ghost hunting.
Okay.
Because basically, it's the formula that they got with the first one, they repeated in the second one, which is why, to me, it's not as good. Because they just repeated the formula. They didn't really deviate much. Which is, trouble starting up at the beginning. Getting to, and then, hey, something major happens where they have to catch their ghost. And you see that whole ghost chase in full. And then montage as success.
Yeah.
And then the bigger picture begins to develop. And then they must go defeat that bigger thing. And then victory.
Yeah.
And also love story.
Yeah.
With Peter and... What's that?
Or attempted love story.
Or attempted love story with Peter and Dana. And, that happened in the first one, and then it happened again in the second one. So they didn't really deviate too much, which to me is the biggest criticism, is they didn't really go for anything truly new. They introduced new concepts, sure. They had the slime, which was, positive and negatively charged, so it could be evil, but you could positively charge it and make it for good.
Your love is lifting me higher.
That's a great scene. I love the dancing toaster scene. I mean, really, if you had the ability to make your toaster dance, wouldn't you do it?
To be ridiculously positively charged, to cause the Statue of Liberty to actually get up and walk.
And you see Cheech or Chong, I don't remember which one. He's like, well, there it is. It was Cheech. I know he has the line of when he sees the Titanic arrive. He's like, well, better late than never.
Yeah.
What's funny is this movie came out right before they found the Titanic, the wreckage.
Really? Okay.
So this is, which is why they have if you go back and look at the movie, in that scene, there's a gigantic gaping hole. And then when they actually saw the wreckage, it's like, okay, maybe it's not that big of a hole, but still.
Yep.
But it is interesting that they found the Titanic not too long after they released this movie. But as for actual criticism of the first one, that's a toughie. Like I said, I would have liked to have seen another full ghost chase other than the end battle with Gozer. But I understand why it was not there, because it would slow down the movie. It wouldn't really add anything to it other than, hey, there's another thing. And we have the cartoon to fill in that void of going on ghost chases.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one to really criticize for the first one. Like the second one, I think, had it been more different, had it not stuck to that same formula, is where I think is where the real criticism comes into play.
Well, and it's one of those things where, and I'm sure that you've seen some of the interviews with Harold Ramis on it. He's like, we really didn't plan on doing a second one. It just kind of happened, and he's talked about it before. How especially with creative things, like one of the reasons that the first movie did so well is because they really didn't hold anything back. They kind of said all they needed to say, and then people were like, we want more. It's like, all right, well, what can we say that's different? And they didn't have a different story to tell. So they said what they could say that was different in terms of the other aspects of it. So, it kind of suffered as a result. And sometimes that happens, unfortunately. With Star Wars, one of the things that made that so different was the fact that, every story in each film is completely different,
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you get to sequels and that sort of thing, it's hard sometimes to come up with a story that's different. I mean, even if you look at the Indiana Jones films, the stories are relatively similar.
Yeah, they do have something of a formula to them.
Unique, but there's still similarities there in the stories. In fact, you have something that is kind of a random adventure that definitely the Ghostbusters movies tend to feel like. Have you heard anything on the possible third movie?
As far as I know, it's basically just on indefinite hold because it keeps getting...
Yeah.
I think what ends up happening was, I think a lot of the ideas, because Dan Aykroyd had so many ideas for the first one. Like, if you look at the DVD or I'm sure it's probably on the Blu-ray too, they have, a lot of, sketches and additional things that they were like, oh, maybe this would have been cool. They just didn't put it in. They were going to take all the stuff they didn't put in, make a different movie where they try to add stuff, and then have all these things. So I think, his original ideas for Ghostbusters was huge. The script they ended up with was massively smaller than what he originally had. And they had so many off-the-wall ideas for the third one. They're like, all right, let's try to get this into a cohesive thing. And it's just been in development hell for so long that it's... And, Bill Murray keeps saying, he keeps waffling on. He's like when they were all right, yeah, let's do it. And then he's like, let's not do it. So Bill Murray is an issue. So it's one of those things where if they're also well, if Bill Murray's not in it, should we even make it? Because he's a very huge part of the series. If he doesn't want to be a part of it, what in the world can we do that would be good? Where do we go from here? So it's one of those things where I think the original Ghostbusters 3 script, if it'll ever be done, may not happen. And I mean, I don't know much of the details of it, but it's also they're all older guys now. So what would their roles be as they are in the setting up in the video game, which we'll touch on in a sec, where there's going to be head of a franchise sort of thing where they're going to farm it out and have other people take up the reins as Ghostbusters, or is it just going to be them as older men still doing the ghost busting? It's a tough thing, and I guess the thing is, the demand for another Ghostbusters something is certainly there, as evident by the fact that there's still a huge fan following for the films and the cartoons and everything.
Yeah.
So the fan interest, and obviously the Lego thing, which got its number of votes, so the fan interest is obviously still there. People still love these movies. It's just, can they make a third one and do the franchise justice without... I guess maybe the big fear is if it's been in development that long, if we make something that's crappy, will we ruin it? Will we ruin the interest that these movies have?
I've seen something on it. I think it. Yeah, it was Harold Ramis. There was an interview with him. I had been a couple years ago. I was still living in at the time. Talked about how if they did a third one, they wouldn't want to try to update the technology because that's one of the things that really made it good and unique is the fact that it was low tech but high tech at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it earlier how they're the principal backs cobbled together, but they're they're shooting, light out of them, basically,
Yeah.
So, I definitely would not want to see him take that. Actually, it's funny. He talked about having, the high-tech Batman suit sort of underneath him. Like, yeah, no, I don't want to see that. The basic coveralls works well. You want that.
Well, that's part of what makes it charming. It's like they go out there and they're just like work clothes. Like, because they're paranormal, investigation and elimination service, like the pest control guys. That you call in for the giant cockroach that can eat your head off. And that's what gives it some of its charm. You don't want super duper high tech RoboCop looking guys.
No, you don't. No, you don't. I don't know. I just kind of think that if you're gonna do it, I don't know. I think if they're gonna do a third one, I'd rather them take their time and come up with an idea that makes sense. And honestly, I would take the approach of both what they had with the approach that they kind of had with Man of Steel and the approach that they had with Skyfall. And they kind of addressed it in the films as, why are the Ghostbusters still relevant today? I would take that as your approach, answer that question first, and then let that kind of help tell the story. Because I think that would be really good.
Mm-hmm. And, it's not like they haven't tried to do something else with it and have it with the timelines. Like, one of the cartoons that I don't think lasted all that long was, the Extreme Ghostbusters, where you had Egon in the role as mentor and they had some kids in the roles of the Ghostbusters. I don't think that lasted very long. But it was at least, something.
Yeah, well, I like the idea. I'm sitting here thinking about it, having, the new recruits, and they've got to, at least in the first kind of battle or whatnot against these ghosts, and they've got to show them the ropes basically, and the kid's just like, how'd you do that? And I could just see Venkman going, just kind of deadpan looking at the kid and going, well, sometimes that happens, and who are you gonna call?
or even better, it's like, or really it's sort of like, how'd you do that? And he's just like, I don't know, I've just kind of been making it up as I go.
Yeah.
Which would totally be a Venkman thing.
Well, that would at least be a story worth going up, where they maybe go from the angle of, they've been doing it for so long, they're tired of doing it. They're like, look, this has been a fun run and everything, but we're tired of this stuff. We're just tired of this crap. We need to give it somebody else. Maybe they have an Uber fan who's so in love with them and they want to get on board with it. Maybe they're not worthy, and I don't know. But then I do like the idea of them giving it, of passing the torch to the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they kind of sort of do that, at least start to do that in the video game that we played. But before we get to that, let's at least give some description of the second one, just in case. Just go over it very, very briefly. Same cast of characters, so we don't have to go into that. The main bad guy, Vigo the Carpathian.
Vigo the Carpathian, which we briefly talked about in our Spider-Man episode starring Marcus
N.A. Yep. Yes, indeed. Who, as far as villains go, he looks the part, kind of fizzles out. Not as tough a fight as Gozer, as Stay Puft was.
Yeah.
Because, he ends up being a head in a painting. But he has a great voice. He has that ominous voice.
It's a great look and a great voice, and sometimes that's, I don't want to say sometimes that's all you need from a movie villain, but that's what makes some great movie villains.
Yep, and it is a little silly, but that's okay. It is supposed to be a comedy at heart. And I do like there are definitely a lot of elements I like about this movie. I don't hate this movie at all. I love this movie too. Yeah. And so I do like the idea, hey, when they start off where they have that down and out period, it's we can't be Ghostbusters because we got sued by everybody for destroying part of a building and covering everybody with marshmallow, and technically sort of conjuring up that giant marshmallow. So
except for the fact that it was the EPA guy's fault.
Yeah, but they can, politics.
I know.
So they can't legally use their Ghostbuster gear or do any paranormal investigation. But Dana Barrett in trouble again, as now it is her child who is being targeted by something unworldly. And so they try to investigate her and end up finding the river of slime. But in the process, get busted by the cops.
Because that's always a good idea.
Yeah. Which, here's kind of my biggest thing. Like, I understand it's a comedy. I understand it's a movie. But guys, you're all, reasonably, and some of you highly educated adults. Don't you think there would have been a better way to go underground than drilling directly through the street in New York City? I could think of a lot better ways to go about this, and you eventually do go about it in a different way in the movie. You go underground in the movie. So that's always like really? That was your best idea, just to drill a hole? But all right. But it gets us to the awesome courtroom. That's awesome. Whatever that is, that's awesome.
That is awesome, isn't it?
Oh, it's a Stay Puft s'more. Speaking of which, I do got to bring this up before we get back to Ghostbusters 2. One of the original Ghostbuster toys, like from the
Yes.
figurines, was a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man thing. That was one of my favorite toys ever as a kid.
Yeah. I remember having that one too.
I still have it somewhere.
Plastic rubber.
Yeah, I still have it somewhere in the shed, I think. And it definitely shows that it was very well played with. Like, one of its hands is missing. And the other one is kind of messed up. And it's kind of dirty, but it's like, that's one of those things, like, every time I see Stay Puft, I think of that toy, and I think of good times. So it's like, that's good stuff. I did love the action figures and toys. I do got to say that. For as much as we were joking about the merchandise part of it, I do have a lot of fond memories of that too.
It's funny, like, we kind of like, it's like, merchandise, they're just looking for a way to make toys, but yet we loved playing with those toys when we were kids.
Exactly. I'm not, like, and the thing is, I'm not dissing the fact that you got to make toys. Like, kids want to play with stuff. If a kid has a favorite hero, like Batman, bringing it back, he wants a figure to play with. But my biggest problem is they don't give them villains these days. They give you 5 different colored Batmans and no villains for them to fight.
Andrew, let me tell you, that was one of my problems when I was a kid. That's probably the reason I stopped playing with action figures. They do the same thing. You walk down the aisle and, with Man of Steel, they've got all the Superman figures, right? Well, they've got them in like 15 different costumes. But try finding one Zod.
Exactly.
It's like, and it's funny because I'll look at it, and I'll look at it sometimes just to see what they've got available, and just say like, all right, what are they doing these days compared to when I was a kid? Sometimes I'll find it like, I should get this just so I can have proof that it existed.
And that's what was really nice about that time period for me, especially now looking back, is like, if you think back to that time, the 2 biggest selling figures at that point were Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters. You know why? Because there was variety.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Have you seen this picture before?
I have, and it's still awesome.
It's still awesome. For you folks at home, this is a picture that, if and when you have kids, this is what you need to do with your kids. They've got the Firehouse playset set up. They've got Ghostbusters action figures set up to make it look like they're attacking the Marshmallow Man. They've got it looks like a 1 or 2-year-old dressed up as the Marshmallow Man.
And complete with the little hat.
That's how you appropriately play with your kids with your old action figures.
What's nice is that's a combination of old and new, because they actually have some I believe they have like a Mattel thing. I know they were the ones who made the current, they have some like really high, close to the movies type, almost props of the PKE meter and the Ghost Trap.
Okay.
And they're actually, I think there's a Mattel collector site, and they actually have like the really well done figures that are like there, so they have really high detailed. Yeah, Godzilla would win that fight.
Yeah, Godzilla would easily win against the Marshmallow Man.
There is a T-shirt of Godzilla and the Marshmallow Man walking off hand in hand. Like like you see their backs and they're holding each other's hand, like they just like we've destroyed some stuff. Let's be friends, and they walk away.
Yeah.
But basically, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. In the late 80s, early 90s, the two big figures were Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters. The reason being was there was a lot of variety. Like, you could go and look at the section of Ghostbuster toys. Yes, you had the Ghostbusters and variations of, like, you had the standard figures. You had some that had, like, little, like, action things where you squeeze their legs and their heads move and they make funny expressions. But they had so many variety of ghosts that you can buy. You had so many things that you can have them interact with. Like, I remember they had, like, a big yellow, like, Volkswagen Beetle looking thing that you hit a button, it becomes like a giant mantis. But it was also a card you could ride. You had, you had the Marshmallow Man. You had all these other monsters. They even brought in classic monsters for you to fight with. So you had Frankenstein. You had Dracula. You had a zombie. You had a Wolfman. You had all these cool things. And like on the Ninja Turtle side, you had the Turtles, of course, and variations of plenty of them. But you also had Foot Soldier. You had Rocksteady, Bebop, Shredder. What?
I forgot to mention this earlier. You're making me think of it now. In the new show of Ninja Turtles, they're bringing those guys back.
Nice.
I've seen concept art for Slash. I also know they're bringing back Mutagen Man. And it's on the horizon. Like they've talked about potentially having Bebop and Rocksteady back. And just the fact that they're bringing back all those classic guys, like, I don't care if they were silly back then. They're working into it now. Like, oh my god, it's awesome.
Well, I guess the show's being successful then. I've only seen like some of the episodes.
Well, the thing is, and I need to get it on DVD when it comes out. Because it's really like, I kind of feel like this is that's a version of Turtles. Not to derail too much, but what we were talking about bringing back old and new, and making Ghostbusters for a new audience while at the same time retaining what makes it good. And I really feel like they've done that with Ninja Turtles. And like they've made it clearly for the fans of the older show, but it's not that difficult for a newer fan of the new generation to appreciate it as well.
Oh yeah, I mean I've actually seen some episodes, so I know what's going on. I've seen the tone of it, and Michelangelo is funny.
Yeah, he's funny, but it's not like funny just to be funny. It makes sense with his character.
Yes. And like instead of Krang being Shredder's minion or vice versa, it's a race of thing called the Krang.
Yeah.
And they introduced the mutagen.
They have a really funny way of talking.
Yeah, because like almost robotic, like I don't know, like
Like the ones called the Turtles must meet. Yeah, I can't talk.
The ones called the Turtles must meet destruction. Affirmative. I agree with your statement.
The Krang agrees with your statement, the Krang.
And they introduced Baxter. I saw it's a human Baxter Stockman.
Yes.
And
that was one thing I saw a concept art of. I hope it comes to fruition, but I believe they're gonna have him become Fly Baxter Stockman.
Cool. And I know they have the guy who's a dog and a guy who's a fish, which is interesting.
Pounded face.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much. Like I kind of saw like the last episode that I saw, which may not be how far along they are in the series. I have no earthly idea. Was at that point I guess Baxter was not with them initially, but now he's with the Foot Clan because Shredder's daughter or somebody there recruited him. And they got a hold of some of the Krang's technology, and he's like, I can use this. And they were going to, I guess, give the fish guy some legs because he couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And that was the last one I saw, so I don't know. I guess that's been a while, so I don't know how much has been progressed since then. But anyway, back on topic.
Yeah.
We can probably talk about this more, especially if you get some DVDs and we can watch them.
Yeah.
But, I guess that's really all I need to say about the toys. And really, I guess, as we sort of touched on, what they introduced and has kind of stayed as far as what they used later on in other incarnations is the slime, which was neat. Where it starts off, really negative, and that's what summons the ghosts if you have enough negativity to it, which is that really neat scene in the courtroom where they fight those two ex-con guys. What were they? The Scoleri brothers. See, I got that right away. And then they use the slime to coat the inside of the Statue of Liberty and have her walk to the museum to break into it so they can fight Vigo.
Which, yes, folks, that's just as crazy as it sounds, but that's what makes it awesome.
And you know what's interesting about that movie? They have 2 Nintendo references.
They have what?
2 Nintendo references.
Really?
Yeah.
What are they?
Well, at one point when Lewis and Janine are babysitting, Lewis suggests that they should play Super Mario Brothers.
Okay.
And then they use a Nintendo remote controller thing to control the Statue of Liberty.
Nice.
Speaking of Nintendo.
Yes.
As with many a thing that are popular, especially movies, a video game was inevitable. It's a shame that the first one was so frickin' horrible.
You can't expect things to be perfect the first time around. Couldn't expect things to be perfect the first time around.
No, but I was certainly, All right, Matt, at a very basic, just at the most basic of levels, what would you expect out of a Ghostbusters video game?
Fights and ghosts.
Yeah? Anything else?
Drive the car. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they sort of took that basic idea you just said and didn't really do much else with it. And on one hand, having a basic idea is a good thing,
Yeah.
but the execution, not so much, because it's a frickin' horribly boring game for most part. And then it gets to be impossibly hard to beat, because you can't get up the frickin' stairs without dying.
Oh, wow.
Now, the Angry Video Game Nerd has gone in length at this particular version of the game and some of its sequels on how you have to go and buy your own equipment, you have to trap ghosts for money, and your driving scenes are frickin' annoying because everything you touch costs money, and you can only enter the building where the final battle takes place at a specific time, and you have to go back, try to get your gear, but if you do that, you'll lose time, and it may not be open again. And then when you get to the part where you have to climb the building, and for a strange reason, the only part, I guess, that they really, really wanted to keep was the amount of stairs you have to climb to get to the top. It's like 26 or something floors, and you can only get touched by these generic-looking ghosts a couple times before you get a game over, and you got to start from the beginning.
That's pretty crappy.
Yeah, and it's doable, but I remember renting this game as a kid, and I could always never figure out, I always had the impression of I would get to that point in the building where you have to climb the stairs.
Yeah.
And what's really freaking hard about that is you have to keep tapping the button for them to move. And even if you have a turbo tap controller, they still move slow. And you have no way of defending yourself against these ghosts. For some strange reason, they don't let you use your proton pack, no matter what button you hit.
So let me get it straight. In a Ghostbusters video game, they don't let you use your proton pack.
Not at that point, no. And when you do, you can only they're only like a beam going up. You don't really have much control over it.
Okay.
And so the thing, as a kid, I could not figure. I was positive I was doing something wrong. I gotta figure this out. And the thing is, if you die, it sends you right back to the beginning of the game. You have to do it all over again, so you don't get a chance to practice.
So it's not like you get to a checkpoint, you can save it, sort of thing.
Right. I mean, this is the NES and earlier versions like on the Commodore 64 and Atari and stuff. They're essentially the same game, and on the Sega Master System.
64. Sorry, I can't remember the song now.
Is really neato. What kind of chip you got in there, Dorito?
Yeah, there you go.
And so, really, the only feasible, like I said, I'm sure there's a way to beat it, but really, you just got to cheat and use Game Genie.
Game Genie. I never had one of those.
And if you beat the game, you get something that is full of spelling, grammar, and punctuation mistakes. One screen, that's it. It says, congratulation, you have completed it. You have completed a great game and prove, spelled with 2 O's, the justice of our culture. Now go and arrest our heroes.
Wait, go and arrest our
Go and rest our heroes. And what's really, like, if you go and watch The Angry Video Game Nerd, he, like, basically is like, let's play teacher and critique this. You know, because, like, not only is congratulations spelled wrong, but it's like, you know, we have a spelling error and a punctuation error. Because it's always, you never say congratulation, you say congratulations. So 2 spelling errors in 1 word. And then he's like, you have completed a great game. He's like, well, minus for that, because that's just a lie. Now, that's the one that I remember playing most vividly as a kid. There are some other ones, and most of them aren't very good. There is one, I think, on Sega that was actually pretty darn good from what I saw. But it's not until we get to the modern era that, in 2009, to be exact, when a new Ghostbusters video game came out, which you actually have a part to tell, and we have very different stories on. But before we get to that personal account, let me at least give a brief synopsis of it. Basically, it takes place, I think, like a year after Ghostbusters 2. Somewhere around, I think, the Thanksgiving time, because they do mention that in the game. And you play the role as the new recruit. You don't have a name, you're just the recruit. And yeah, they have all 4 Ghostbusters back to do the voice acting. And they had a heavy hand in the plot and story of it, which is basically you have a contract with the city, so now you can, if you cause damage, it's covered, and you are part of a city sort of subsidy, a city service rather. Like, you know, you got the trash guys, you got the ghost guys now. Yep. And basically stuff is happening again where there's a lot more paranormal activity. You got to go revisit some places from the movies, fight some old foes, and then fight new foes. And end up fighting the guy who is originally constructed the building that pulled in Gozer. And he decides, oh, I'm going to be the guy. I know I'm not doing it great justice, but that's kind of the overall version. And there are some differences in the story, in the some of the sections depending on which version you have. Like I have both the Wii version and the Xbox version. And there are some there's different levels in each. So it does make having both games justified because you do get a different experience.
Yeah.
Plus, in the Wii version, you have 2 players, and the Xbox version, you can do online play. In various other, like a different sort of ghost-busting game. But it's the Wii version that I picked up first.
Right.
And I was super excited because it was essentially the 3rd Ghostbuster film that we never got. Because it's pretty, like, storyline-wise, it's actually pretty good. Like, it really does hold up as what we want from a Ghostbusters movie. And the nice thing is, it actually does introduce new things that we can do while also sort of keeping true to what we like.
Yeah.
You know, we had interdimensional travel. We had these otherworldly beings that were the main source of problems. Instead of just having a guy try to get to it, or having there was an otherworldly being in both the first 2 movies, but still there was always some conduit that you had to follow through. But no, it was like the guy who
introduced different elements into the ghost busting techniques and strategies
that
were not in previous films.
Right, and like for the first time in video game, you actually felt like you were a Ghostbuster. Like that was the main thing that was lacking in most of the other ones. Is like, yeah, I'm playing a game, but it's not really very fun, and I don't really feel like I'm doing like what I should be doing. Like I'm not getting that Ghostbusters experience. With this game, you do. And even Dan Aykroyd himself, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, has said this is essentially the 3rd movie. So,
maybe all we have, but you know.
And if you know, as much as I would love to see a cinematic redoing of it, or a cinematic version of Ghostbusters 3, I'm happy that we got this because it is freaking good. Now, I was psyched about this game. And I was even more happy that I got something that I could let my friend join along with.
Yes.
And I think I'll let you handle this part, and then I'll finish up.
Well, I remember you being very, very excited about it, and I was like, good. I'm glad. He's getting something he's been wanting for a long time. This is good. And I remember you being very excited to have something you could play with me, and I'm It's like, seriously, like, and that's just the difference between you and me. It's like, I don't, and maybe this is something that I struggle with too. I have a hard time finishing things. And it's partially because I get bored with them. I kind of got bored with the game about halfway through. Because I felt like, okay, we're doing the same thing as far as like, okay, we gotta come over here and get this, and we gotta go over here and beat this boss. Now it's taking more time to beat this boss because he's a harder boss. Like, Andrew, you go play it. Leave me out of it.
And
It's one of those things where I didn't want to take the experience away from you of playing with your friend. At the same time, yeah, it's like I've said before, it's like I don't need to keep going in a game to enjoy it. Like, I can literally, like, a good example, the Batman animated game I have for Game Boy. I've only gotten through the third level once. That's not even technically the third level, it's technically the second level. It's like they took the second level and split it up into two levels, which I don't understand why. Basically, first level is you have to beat the Joker. Then your first level is you have to get through Scarecrow. Your second level is Mr. Freeze. I've only beat Mr. Freeze once. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'll do that and be like, alright, I'm good for the year. You know? And pick it back up again and then play it again. It's like, okay, am I going to beat Mr. Freeze? No. Okay, I'm good. You know, if I run out of lives, I run out of lives. I feel no need to go back and try again. Ghostbusters, it was a well-done game. It's story, but unless you're a hardcore gamer, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
well,
it's just a different...
I don't think hardcore gamer is quite the thing of. I think you just need to be a gamer in general.
Yeah.
Because that was one that you could easily. Yeah. Because to me, and the thing is, on one hand, I do thank you that you were like, I don't want to ruin this experience for him because this is something he's clearly having fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ruin it by being like, dude, I don't really want to do this. So I appreciate that on that level, but on the other hand, I was like, I'm kind of like, I always feel bad about it because like if I knew you were not having fun, I would have been like, all right, I'll just do it myself because I'm having a ton of fun.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
You know what though? It was a good learning experience for him because it made me realize why I like the types of games I like. You know, I can sit there and play Halo. I can sit there and play Mortal Kombat. I can play Age of Empires. But the reason I can do that is because they don't go on forever. You know, when I was up the last time at my parents' house and I was playing Mortal Kombat with my brother, I played for like a half an hour to an hour, and then we quit.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only of Mortal Kombat. It's like I'm good for a year. Like I feel no need to go back. It's like, unfortunately, my brother does feel the need to go back and practice, so it's not going to be as easy for me to beat him the next time I play with him. But you know, I've never been a gamer. That's why I barely own a system. I have a PlayStation 1. That's the only system I have. That's most likely the only system I will ever get because I'm not a gamer, you know?
Well, you are in a sense of like you own an iTouch and you have games on that. You like things that you can play at your leisure whenever you want it.
I've got rid of some of those games because I don't play them.
True, but I'm just saying like you need games that like can occupy your time while you're bored, and then once you're done with them, you can leave them alone forever. And if you have an urging, you like, let me go play that again for a little bit because I'm bored and I kind of feel like playing that, and then I'm done. It's a different thing when you, because like you and I are very, very different in the sense of you have trouble finishing things. I have trouble starting things.
Yeah.
But once I start them, I'm like, well, I'm going to finish this because, hey, I started it. Unless it becomes impossible, like, because of difficulty or whatnot. But
see, my problem is I can start like 5 things and be like really gung-ho about it. Get it halfway through and it's like, all right, this is getting too hard. Enough of that.
Yeah, so for me, it's completely different, which is why, it's why I'm good with playing RPGs I'm good with playing games that take time in general. Like I'm certainly good with playing games that don't take time. Like I'm more than happy to play a fighting game for a few hours, and then call it quits and not pick it up for a long, long time. That's fine too. It just takes a different mentality. And like as I said, I appreciate that you stuck it out with me. with the other one.
It's like I said, dude. It's like it was something that you were really excited about, and you got basically the experience you were wanting. You know, and I definitely, you know, who am I to take that experience away from somebody? You know, it's like.
And the thing is, like that it goes back to like when
I had a Batmobile and I drove it everywhere I went, and you're like, dude, seriously, you gotta bring the car out again? It's like it's the Batmobile.
Well, that's a little different if that's your form of transportation. I mean, let's try to at least keep it somewhat apples to apples here.
All right, apples to apples. I'm trying to think, actually.
I think it would be like, you know, like it would be like you and Lego. Like you have your passion for Lego. I don't have the same passion. But I'll, you know, if you're like, hey, let's build stuff, I'm like, all right, I'm okay with building stuff, but it would be different. I'm up for building like, you know, once, maybe a couple of months or so. It would be different if like every other day I came home from work, like, all right, let's build today. Then I would definitely have that same experience you did.
That actually makes sense because when it comes to Lego, I have no problem building something that takes me a week to build. Like when I was working on Axis Chemicals, I had a version of it built. I had the base built at your place, and then when I moved it, brought it down and finished it to a point, and then decided to redesign it, and so took it down and rebuilt it. And, you know, it took a while. I can do things like that. Part of the reason I can do that is because I can put it on pause, you know, and then I also have the sense of I'm seeing it happen, so it's like, okay, well, let me just put 2 more pieces on, and then that 2 pieces becomes like 40 pieces.
But you see what I'm getting at. That's a
good way to equate it.
Yeah. So, you know, it's to each his own in that regard. And the thing is, what I really liked about that experience from my perspective is the fact that it really and truly captured that sense of going back to your, like, being back as a kid and playing Ghostbusters with your friends. Like, going outside and pretending you have a proton pack on and shooting invisible ghosts and stuff. And doing it as a team. Like, that part of it really was enjoyable. Unfortunately, the Xbox version does not have 2-player. And the stuff you do on the online, which I can't do because I don't do the paid account because screw them. I can do it for free on PlayStation. Yeah. You know, it's not the same. You don't get to play in the story game. You just play a different ghost catching game, which is fine. That's fun. So, you know, it's enjoyable for me, and I liked it. So there. I don't care what any naysayers may say. And as far as the future for Ghostbusters, who knows? Like we said, the 3rd movie, it's kind of written, but I'm sure if they ever pick it up again, it would have to be redone. And, you know, the availability of actors is always going to be an issue. So who knows if we'll ever get a cinematic live action of Ghostbusters. I've been saying for a while that I think maybe, you know, an animated version would be good. You know, because that way you can save on some of the, I mean, granted, animation isn't cheap, especially with what they have now, but it's certainly an option if you want to do some of the more far-out things that they've been suggesting. So, you know, if you want to have it take place not long after the movies happened, like in the timeline of that, they don't have to worry about their age and how they look. They just got to do the voices.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, there's a lot you can do with animation. And it's funny because we say animation, but, like, if you look at what they did with Clone Wars, and, I mean, animation today is not the same animation it has been.
Right.
And we're not just talking about the quality of the actual look, but the quality of the storytelling and the writing. I know I keep bringing up Clone Wars, but that's a good example. But also the new show, Beware the Batman. I've seen a couple episodes of that, and that does not. That is, I would say, like that is on par with the animated series, if not, and it's consistent in its tone and everything.
Really?
They have actually, and this is only the first season. I've only seen a handful of episodes, but they may have actually outdone the animated series.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know it existed until you just said something.
Yeah, it started. It started back in July. But unfortunately, I don't have Cartoon Network, so I don't get to watch it very often. I saw I saw one episode when I was at my parents' house, and then another one online, and then I've never been able to find another episode online.
I'll have to try to find it and see what it looks like. At least check it out.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's amazing what, and I honestly wouldn't, I mean, back to Ghostbusters on TV, I think that might be the way to do it. And actually, realistically, Ghostbusters can be made relatively cheap. Why not make a live-action TV show with Ghostbusters?
I don't know. I mean, I still think there's plenty. I mean, especially with the fan base that's still strong. Like, I mean, we've mentioned it twice already, but like, just the Lego thing is certainly proven concept of. Oh, yeah. And just like go to any convention.
Cosplay scene is Ghostbusters.
Exactly. Go to any convention, and you'll see at least bare minimum 10 people in Ghostbuster gear.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd say a bare minimum at any convention, because the size of the convention would dictate the size of the amount of people that show up in costume.
True. I mean, you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I don't know. I just think there's plenty of potential that can still be done, and I hope they do come back to it and give us something.
Me too.
Because, busting makes you feel good.
The what?
Busting makes you feel good.
Busting makes you feel good. Yeah, it does.
On that note, Freaks out.
Freaks